Now, I don't mean to brag, but I have often been noted as a person of many talents. From theatre and music to sports and martial arts, I very frequently hear the words, "You're good at everything," or "Is there anything you can't do?" Swimming. Actually, that's a lie. I can swim, I just can't tread water. You won't be catching me doing any cool water sports this summer. However, I have never truly believed these words. I still feel like I'm inadequate, or like there's more to do, or something to improve on. I've been thinking about this recently, and I've come to terms with the idea that this may be due to an oversaturation of talent and a fear of being seen as mediocre in comparison to others. Though I can play many instruments, I have a lot of talents, and I seem to excel in the things that I do. Being online means I am constantly exposed to people that can do these things but better, leaving me to feel like my talents are not actually that incredible, nor as exceptional as the people in my life frequently state. In an era where creative expression is more accessible than ever, this fear of being mediocre has become a silent epidemic. Social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube have democratized creativity, allowing artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers to share their work with the world. Yet this same accessibility has given rise to a profound existential anxiety, the fear that one's work will never be exceptional enough to rise above the noise, to be validated, or to be worthy of attention. But this fear is not new. Philosophers and theorists have long explored the human desire for recognition and the dread of insignificance. However, in a digital age where creative worth is often measured through likes, views, and followers, this fear has become more persistent and psychologically consuming. In this video, we will explore how social media has amplified this fear of mediocrity through the oversaturation of talent, the big fish, little pond phenomenon, and the commodification of self-worth through digital metrics. Social media has created an unprecedented global stage for talent. Anyone with a smartphone and an internet connection can showcase their art, music, writing, or photography to millions of people. Whilst this accessibility has allowed for incredible diversity and innovation, it has also resulted in what cultural theorist Byung-Chul refers to as the Burnout society, a state in which individuals are constantly driven to perform, create, and self-optimize in a competitive and hypervisual digital environment. In his book, The Burnout Society, Han argues that contemporary society has shifted from a disciplinary model where external forces such as institutions and rigid social structures dictate behaviour to a model of self-exploitation, where individuals internalise the demand for productivity and push themselves to the point of exhaustion. This shift is particularly evident in the digital creative landscape, where the pressure to constantly produce content, engage with audiences, and maintain visibility fosters an environment of chronic burnout. Whenever creators talk about this pressure to create, this is often compared to the difficulties of a 9-to-5 job. I work full-time, meaning that this is a hobby, and the idea of being able to do a hobby for work is ideal, right? For other people in my life, they make similar comments about streaming, like you're literally paid to game all day and you're saying that that's as difficult or more difficult than a 9-to-5 job. Of course, these creators don't have to deal with someone nagging them like a boss, or with the general public whose manners are reducing by the day. And when compared to that, it may seem that their strife is way out of touch. However, when seen through the lens of Han's arguments, we begin to see that this pressure, regardless of whether or not the creators put this pressure on themselves, creates burnout too. That, we can all agree on, is not a nice situation to be in. In the context of social media, this burnout manifests in several ways. Creators are not just expected to produce high quality work, but to do so consistently and at an accelerated pace. The algorithm-driven natures of platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube prioritizes regular engagement, forcing creators to meet an unsustainable demand for content. Unlike traditional artists or musicians who could once work on their craft without the immediate pressure of audience expectations, digital creators creators now face an environment where their relevance is tied to their output. The moment that they stop producing, they risk being forgotten, overshadowed by an endless stream of new talent. And YouTubers such as PewDiePie and Cinnamon Toast Ken have spoken about the need to maintain consistency with content creation in order to grow. And whilst I can leave my job and not have to work at home, for a lot of creatives, their job is at home, unless they're able to, rent out an office space, which can make it more difficult to strike a work-life balance. And for those of us that work and create, this is even harder. I've spoken previously about my break from content creation, and another factor that contributed to it was that I found it so difficult to sustain creativity whilst also working a job with a lot of responsibility. And if the end goal was to be able to create full time and also be sustained through that in income, then I would have to sacrifice all free time to maintain momentum. And that was quite difficult in the last job that I was in, since my time outside of work was often taken up by travelling to and from work, cooking, cleaning, and sleeping. Yeah, my life was not the funnest. This relentless cycle of content creation for those whose sole income comes from their creative work aligns with Han's ideas that modern individuals are no longer oppressed by external authorities, but by their own compulsion to maximize productivity. Social media creators are both their own employers and employees, pushing themselves to meet ever-increasing standards without this external coercion or support. The result may be a state of perpetual exhaustion, where creativity, once a source of joy and self-expression, becomes a burden. Everything becomes an opportunity for content, something that many creators have discussed, including Jay Schlatt.
Breaks, or is every moment consumed by the idea of how do I make this into content? That's a good question. Most people I know in the content creator space feel guilty for taking breaks, because why would you? I think when you break it down logically, the answer I come to is always like, well, why would I take a break? Why would I let my foot off the gas even for an instant when I have this amazing opportunity in front of me? And I think that's what most content creators see too. And that gets in the way of trying to actually enjoy things sometimes when you're on vacation. Oh, let's record this. Oh, you're having a great moment. Let's record this. It all becomes about the content, and that's not a great mindset to have.
For video essayists like myself, this can manifest in a different way. Any scroll through social media or thought-provoking discussion becomes, wait, I can make a video on this, which is great for creativity, but some discussions and personal opinions perhaps should not be shared online. On the other hand, it opens me up to another risk. Often, I don't see the point in learning about something or researching something if not for content. This makes hobbies a matter of optimization of opportunity rather than, for enjoyment. The need to remain relevant and competitive intensifies these feelings of mediocrity. When success is often measured in likes, shares, and followers, it's very easy for creators to feel as though they are never doing enough. Even those who experience brief moments of virality often feel pressure to replicate their success, leading to creative stagnation and stress. This echoes Han's assertion that burnout is not merely a result of overwork, but of a deeper existential crisis, one rooted in this endless pursuit of validation and self-optimization. I'd like to say that this is something that I am making peace with. I am trying to focus on enjoying the process, the researching, the scripting, the filming, and even the editing. And though I know that the amount of views that a video gets is not a measurement of how good it is, when that YouTube analytics screen shows me a 10 of 10, that week of evenings spent researching, scripting, and filming and editing is reduced to a numerical value. It's so easy to forget the enjoyment of creating when you're hit with the harsh reality that nobody is seeing your creation. Thus, whilst social media has democratized creative expression, it has also introduced an insidious paradox. The very platforms that empower creators also exhausts them. The fear of being mediocre is not simply the fear of lacking talent, but a fear of becoming invisible in an oversaturated, fast-paced digital economy. Creators are left in a constant state of tension, torn between their passion for their craft and the exhausting demand to stay visible, relevant, and exceptional. In this sense, the burnout society and the fear of mediocrity are linked, both fueled by the hyper-competitive, hyper-productive nature of digital culture. The problem with this digital ecosystem is that it exposes us to the best of the best on a daily basis. Algorithms prioritize the most visually stunning art, the most technically impressive music, and the most thought-provoking writing. For emerging creators, this constant exposure can lead to a crippling sense of inferiority. You know, when you witness a 16-year-old digital artist creating hyper-realistic portraits, or a self-taught musician producing hit songs from their bedroom, it can feel like your own work is painfully inadequate. Though some may argue that this can be used for inspiration, you know, the fact that hit songs can be produced from your bedroom may inspire artists to start creating and not be held back by the lack of equipment or monetary support. But when your music doesn't get that recognition, you can then begin to doubt yourself. Why did they get recognized and not me? Am I just not good enough? This phenomenon is closely tied to what sociologist that I can't actually pronounce, so I'm going to butcher it in this attempt, Zygmunt Bauman, called liquid modernity. The idea that in a world of constant flux and change, individuals are left to construct their identities and worth through consumption and performance. On social media, creative identity is often built through visibility and engagement, and when one's work fails to gain traction in a sea of viral content, it can lead to feelings of creative insignificance. A common experience among young artists is the act of doom scrolling through platforms like Instagram or Pinterest, only to find thousands of artists who seem to possess more talent, originality, and success. Digital artist Loish, who gained massive popularity for her unique style, once spoke about how the internet both paralyzed and inspired her.
Inspiration overload. And I think when you spend too much time looking at art that you think is super beautiful and super awesome, then you get overloaded and then it becomes like not useful anymore. You know, so it becomes like actually an obstacle in the way of creativity, rather than allowing you to do something with it.
This fear is not rooted in a lack of passion or skill, but in the overwhelming exposure to talent that the digital world provides. It's one of the many reasons why I don't watch much YouTube content anymore, and I avoid watching videos about topics that I want to cover. It's very easy to watch bigger content creators cover a topic and think, well, better not talk about that one then. It's already been done, and they've said everything I have to say, so what makes my takes original now? Before the internet, creative individuals often thrived within smaller, localized communities. A talented musician in a small town or an exceptional painter within a university program could be recognized and celebrated within that environment. This phenomenon, known as big fish, little pond effect, provided creators with a sense of identity and accomplishment. However, with the advent of social media, creators are no longer confined to their local communities. They're now competing on a global scale where the little pond is replaced by an endless ocean of talent. This shift has led to what psychologist Barry Schwartz calls the paradox of choice. The idea that when presented with too many options or comparisons, individuals often experience anxiety and self-doubt rather than satisfaction. In fact, I would argue that this is not only something experienced in social media. Again, not to brag, I'm a very humble human being, but I went through school constantly at the top of my classes. Then I went to university and suddenly there wasn't just a class of people on my level, but above me and far more talented than myself. Massive hit to the ego. I know, no wonder I'm so humble now. And reflecting as an adult, obviously being better than everyone else is not a value that I hold dear, nor is it one that I would use to equate my self-worth. In reality, I think that that's quite vain and small-minded, you know, placing so much importance on being better than others. But as an 18-year-old, going from being a big fish in a small pond to being a small fish in a big pond, it was very difficult to reconcile with these feelings of inadequacy in the face of so much talent. And it made me quite bitter at times. When we look at the music industry, platforms like SoundCloud and Spotify have allowed independent artists to reach international audiences, yet these platforms are also oversaturated with millions of aspiring musicians. For every artist who gains recognition, there are thousands who remain unheard. This phenomenon was famously described by musician and writer Damon Krukowski, who argued that streaming platforms have devalued creative labour by turning art into an endless stream of content. In this environment, even highly talented musicians struggle to gain visibility, leading to the internalization of creative failure, not because they actually lack any quality or talent in their work, but because it lacks the attention it deserves. One of the most psychologically damaging aspects of social media is the quantification of creative worth. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok assign numerical value to creative expression through likes, shares, and followers. As a result, artists and creators are not only judged on the quality of their work, but on how well it performs in the algorithm. This phenomenon aligns with French philosopher Jean Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality, the idea that in a media-saturated world, representations of reality become more real than reality itself. On social media, the value of art is no longer determined by its emotional depth or originality, but by its ability to generate engagement and go viral. As I've mentioned earlier, though I'm trying to move away from numerical value, it's difficult to remain confident in your content when it doesn't get these views. Creators like YouTuber Casey Neistat and TikTok artist Devin Rodriguez have spoken openly about the psychological toll of chasing engagement.
I don't see more brilliant stuff. I just see more stuff. And what concerns me is that that's what's sort of being celebrated, is like now it's purely about the metrics and not about how you achieve those metrics, and that sucks.
This shift from intrinsic creativity to external validation is what philosopher Erich Fromm warned about in The Art of Being, 1976, where he argued that modern society pushes individuals towards having external success rather than being authentic self-expression. Many commentary channels have also talked about this and the risk of building a negative audience, as when you make critical content, this is what your audience will end up being like.
Is that the content that you create results in the community that you're going to have. So if you don't want to have a toxic community, but you just want to be a YouTuber, then if you make drama content and like stuff like that, then you're going to have a toxic community and you're going to get stuck into that because they're only going to want to watch you for that one thing. So just be careful. If you get into it, try to make stuff that you actually want to make. It's important.
Now, I used to make commentary videos, and the majority of my subscribers came from a video I made on Sniper Wolf misgendering someone in a reaction video, which is probably why I never get any views, because all those subscribers are dead subs. As much as these videos are often overreactionary and definitely a caricature of my personality and views, they may have attracted some hypercritical followers. Like no doy, of course that's gonna happen. But I'm a big adult now, you know, in my mid-20s. Which is gross, and I don't think that that is the audience that I want to associate with. Of course, if you've been watching my content for a long time or have commented on my videos frequently, you should know that I'm all about the right to having an opinion, and I'll only ever censor discriminatory or vulgar language. However, I would rather have a comment section with individuals that are being considerate and nuanced rather than hypercritical arseholes that peddle racist vocal points. But the pressure to grow and be relevant was why I ended up in commentary in the first place. I did care about many of the issues that I spoke about, but often I found like, why am I talking about this? I really don't give a fuck. And though many may find my new content irrelevant or boring, like, why is she yapping on about this? Yawn. I do want to be more authentic and cover things that, you know, I'm actually interested in. And this has helped quell my fear of mediocrity or relevancy, as I'm beginning to enjoy what I'm covering. My energy doesn't feel wasted anymore when I don't see these numerical results, as my focus is no longer heavily centered around that. And we're kind of coming to this natural conclusion. You know, if the fear of being mediocre is rooted in external validation, the obsession with likes, followers, and algorithmic successes, then the solution lies not in becoming more visible, but in redefining what it means to create in the first place. And this, of course, requires a radical shift in mindset where success is no longer measured by virality or recognition, but by personal fulfillment, authentic community, and creative integrity. Philosophers and theorists such as Alain de Botton and Richard Sennett provide valuable frameworks for understanding this shift, but the question still remains: how do we actually implement this in practice as creators? Philosopher Alain de Botton, who I'm starting to think is actually pronounced Alan, maybe because it's a he, but I don't know, could be Alain, I'm not, whatever. In his book, Status Anxiety of 2014, he argues that modern anxiety is rooted in the constant comparison to others and a desire for recognition from an audience we don't even know. This is exactly what social media thrives on. The constant visibility of others' successes makes us feel as though we're falling behind or failing to make it. De Botton suggests that the antidote to this anxiety is not to achieve more, but to redefine success itself. In practice, this means shifting your creative goals from how can I go viral to how can I create work that feels more meaningful to me. It also means setting creative goals that are process driven and not performance driven. For example, focusing on improving your craft, exploring new styles, or finishing personal projects rather than chasing numbers. And measuring success through personal growth. Did you learn something new? Did your work resonate with even one person? Did you enjoy the process of creating? In The Craftsman, 2008, sociologist Richard Sennett emphasizes the importance of slow, intentional craftsmanship over fast mass production. His work highlights how true creative fulfillment comes not from mass recognition, but from deepening your skill and building meaningful work over time. And yet, definitely experienced this firsthand. The Sniper Wolf video was just something that I recorded off the cuff. I hadn't planned it, not a lot of work went into it, and it went viral. And yeah, it was great seeing those numbers rack up and have all my friends so excited for me. But over time, it's not a video that I hold dear or one that I'm proud of. There are many that I have made that I wish had more recognition, but I'm happy with them because of the amount of effort and research and knowledge that I gained from making them. So, in the age of social media, this translates into building smaller, more intentional communities rather than chasing mass visibility. In practice, it means shifting from quantity to quality. Instead of posting daily to stay relevant, maybe focus on creating work that takes time and resonates deeply with a smaller audience. We could aim to build creative intimacy with niche communities rather than seeking viral attention from strangers, and platforms like Patreon, Substack, or Discord are great for this. And as we've discussed, one of the most psychologically damaging aspects of social media is that your creative worth becomes tied to numbers like views, followers, comments, subscribers. In practice, detaching from metrics can look like limiting your time on social media platforms and intentionally stepping away from the endless feedback loop of likes and comments. This is something I need to work on, but I'm definitely better at it now than what I was when I first started. We could post anonymously under a pseudonym so that work is free from personal branding and expectations, or move to platforms that prioritize creativity over visibility with things like Patreon, Substack, or Bandcamp, where creators are supported directly by their audience, not an algorithm. In Japanese philosophy, there's a concept called ikigai, which translates to the reason for being. Again, apologies if I've butchered that pronunciation. It's the idea that true fulfillment comes from finding the intersection between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what sustains you. In practice, this means that as creators, we should ask ourselves, am I creating for validation or because I genuinely love the process? Am I making work that feels true to me or what I think will perform well online? And interestingly enough, when I've created videos that I think will do well, they never do. Yet when I just record something off the cuff or that I'm just interested in, it seems to do a lot better than my other videos. Maybe it's because that passion comes through on camera. I don't know. And am I measuring success in numbers or in the depth of connection I build with others? The fear of being mediocre thrives in a system that treats creativity as content production, where creators are only seen as valuable as their latest post or viral hit. But true creativity has never been about being the best. It's about being authentic, being consistent, and most importantly, being human. By reclaiming creative purpose, focusing on smaller, more intentional communities, and detaching from the pressure of constant visibility, creators can slowly begin to detach from the fear of mediocrity and reconnect with why they started creating in the first place. In an age where everyone is trying to be seen, the most radical thing you can do is create without the need to be seen at all. To conclude, the fear of being mediocre in the age of social media is not a reflection of creative failure, but a symptom of an overstimulated, hypervisual digital world. In the words of writer Kurt Vonnegut, go into the arts. The arts are not a way to make a living. They are a very human way of making life more bearable. Perhaps the true cure to creative anxiety lies not in escaping mediocrity, but in embracing the act of creating itself, without the need for constant validation. Thank you for watching this video, and to completely contradict everything I've just said, if you do enjoy this video, please give it a like. Please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I feel like this is something we can all relate to, regardless of whether we create YouTube videos, TikToks, music, art, etc., and whether we share that online or not. If you're new to this channel and you enjoyed this kind of content, please hit subscribe, and with that, I'll see you soon.